More than 150 people are killed and hundreds more missing after Cyclone Idai sweeps through southeastern Africa. A mass funeral ceremony is held for the victims of last week's Ethiopia Airlines jet crash. And South Africa's beauty industry embraces the natural movement. Africa 54 starts right now.
Good evening and welcome. I'm Vincent McCory. This is Africa 54. We begin tonight in southeastern Africa, where at least 150 people were killed and hundreds more are missing after Cyclone Idai battered Mozambique, Malawi, and Zimbabwe. A team of International Federation of Red Cross and Red Crescent Societies aid workers reached the devastated city of Beira, Mozambique, Sunday to investigate the situation. Team leader Jamie Lezor says after an aerial assessment, 90% of the area was destroyed. The massive rotating air mass made landfall Thursday on the Mozambique coast with winds of nearly 200 kilometers an hour. The storm then moved west into Malawi and Zimbabwe. The United Nations estimates more than 1.5 million people in the three nations were affected by the storm. Tens of thousands have been cut off from roads and telephones in mainly poor rural areas. The UN says about 122 people had died in Mozambique and Malawi. Zimbabwean officials on Sunday confirmed 65 deaths. The president of Mozambique and Zimbabwe cut short their overseas trips to deal with the aftermath of this cyclone. Now, for more on the devastating cyclone, I'm joined by VOA Portuguese reporter Amancio Vilanculos. And welcome back to Africa 54.
Thank you, Vincent.
Now, first, let's go with the numbers, a little bit of update. What are you hearing? We have 150, but what is the reality on the ground?
We're still in that number 150, but the president just came this morning in Maputo, Mozambique, to say that at least 100,000 people are affected by the impact of the cyclone, and out of that number, at least 1,000 people might die because there's some village who have been all wiped out by the waters.
And people missing. Now, given that this is a weather-related thing, I know it hasn't happened for many, many years now, was there any warning for people to evacuate or to take some other action?
There's been actually some warnings. Government started informing people about the impact of this. In some of the reports that we have, some other people were reluctant to move, and for many reasons. Some did not have a place where to go, and then the government set up like some camps for people to go, and then some did not just move from their area because they were in fear of looting. Will go and take their goods. But in the exact day of the Idai cyclone in Beira, people moved for some other place. But unfortunately, even though people were caught in the middle of running to seek.
Now, looking at the images that are coming from there, one would expect that the president will immediately, at least in Mozambique, announce a national emergency and perhaps call for some help. What is what are you hearing?
That's becoming a big issue. When this happened, the president of Mozambique, Mr. Filipe Nyusi, was visiting Swaziland. He sent a message immediately telling people that they should move to safer places, and then he had to interrupt his visit to Eswatini, the former Swaziland, and then he went back to Mozambique and then went to visit those affected. There was some criticism on that president should not have gone to Swaziland, and also some people are just calling the Mozambique government to call a state of emergency in face of this. But so far, we haven't had anything related to that. But it's a good point that at least now the president is admitting that at least 1,000 people might die and that 100,000 people are facing this. It's a serious situation since 2000 when we had. So the
last one, very in a few words, up to this point, in terms of where it is affected and where it affected last time, this is a different region.
A different region. The last one in 2000, when we had this girl Rosita was born in a tree, was in Gaza province, which is in the south, and this time is in central Mozambique, and then affecting mainly the city of Beira, which has got the one of the biggest ports in the Southern Africa region, servicing Zimbabwe, Malawi, and Zambia. So this is central Mozambique, basically.
Amancio, thank you very much for giving us those updates. Yeah, that's VOA Portuguese reporter Amancio Vilanculos. Now, to the east, Ethiopia's transport minister says flight data recorders from Boeing 737 MAX planes that crashed in Ethiopia and Indonesia show clear similarities. Dagmawit Moges told reporters Sunday the so-called black boxes from Ethiopian Airlines Flight 302 were recovered in good condition. That is enabling investigators to extract almost all the data inside. He did not elaborate on what the similarities were. Moges says that a preliminary report on last week's plane crash, which left 157 people dead, is expected to be released within 30 days. Meanwhile, thousands marched in Addis Ababa, accompanying 17 empty caskets at funerals held on Sunday for the 17 Ethiopians killed in the crash. The flight was also carrying 21 United Nations staff members who were on their way to attend a major environment conference in Nairobi when the plane went down. 32 of those who perished were Kenyans. The crash of the Ethiopian Airlines jet shortly after takeoff from Addis Ababa to Nairobi prompted the U.S. and more than 30 other countries to ground this Boeing 737 MAX 8 fleet. Boeing says it is completing a software update for its anti-stall system. Now, police in the Netherlands say there are multiple injuries in a shooting incident that is believed to have left at least 3 people dead. Authorities say at least 9 people were wounded in the attack in the central Dutch city of Utrecht. The assault occurred at a tram station in a residential neighborhood. Police say that ambulances and trauma helicopters were deployed to the scene to assist the wounded. Officials appealed to the public to stay clear of the area to allow first responders room to provide the necessary help. A body covered by a white sheet was seen on the ground next to a tram. The area surrounded the shooting has been cordoned off as police continue to investigate and look for possible motive, including terrorism. Netherlands Prime Minister Mark Rutte has expressed his deep concern about the incident. Now to the latest in the New Zealand shooting massacre. The Prime Minister says that her cabinet has made decisions about the reform of gun laws following Friday's massacre at the 2 mosques in Christchurch. Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern said Monday the details are still being worked out, but the changes to the country's firearms laws will be announced in full within 10 days.
You know, I think what the public rightly are asking right now is why is it and how is it that you should and are currently able to buy military-style semi-automatic weapons in New Zealand? And that's the right question to ask.
Well, authorities have accused a 28-year-old Australian Brenton Harris Tarrant of carrying out the horrific attack that left 50 people dead. He is the only person in custody linked to the killings, and he has been charged with murder. Now, the deadly mass shooting at 2 New Zealand mosques has prompted an outpouring of grief and rekindled dialogue and reflections about confronting hate and xenophobia in communities spanning the globe, including in the United States. VOA's Micah Bowman reports from Washington, where stopping the spread of hate messaging in the digital age is a topic of renewed discussion.
From New Zealand to Pakistan to the United States, shock, mourning, and a shared sense of vulnerability.
There's always that fear of, you know, are we going to, is something like that going to happen here in our community?
The alleged gunman in the New Zealand attack posted a hate-filled anti-immigrant manifesto and is thought to have made a white nationalist hand gesture during a court appearance. What was once unthinkable in New Zealand seems tragically familiar in America, which has endured hate-inspired mass shootings at a black church in South Carolina and a synagogue in Pennsylvania.
When you put hate and guns together, it's not a good result.
Once largely hidden from view, white nationalism has re-emerged all too publicly in America. On the streets of Charlottesville, Virginia in 2017, and in cyberspace to this day.
They believe white people of European descent are superior to non-whites. And there's a rise in public expression of white supremacist beliefs. It's come out of the shadows.
This is an issue that also includes social media. Social media now, there are very, very few barriers to entry and, frankly, standards for exit. And so it's incumbent upon social media providers, internet service providers, to be vigilant when it comes to hate speech content.
President Donald Trump swiftly condemned the New Zealand attack.
It's a horrible, horrible thing. I told the Prime Minister that the United States is with them all the way, 100%, whatever they need.
At the same time, the president downplayed white nationalism as a rising threat and said he had not seen the shooter's manifesto that reportedly praised Trump as, quote, a symbol of renewed white identity and common purpose. Trump drew fierce criticism for blaming both white supremacists and counter-demonstrators for violence in Charlottesville. He has also spoken disparagingly of undocumented immigrants and their countries of origin. Appearing on Fox News Sunday, Trump's acting chief of staff, Mick Mulvaney, declared, quote, the president is not a white supremacist, unquote. He also addressed the New Zealand shooter's writings.
I don't think it's fair to cast this person as a supporter of Donald Trump. This was a disturbed individual, an evil person.
Amid the sorrow and heartbreak after the New Zealand attack, a suggested path forward from a youngster at a Michigan Islamic Institute.
But I found out that vengeance isn't the thing. Love is the thing. Goodness, kindness, everything that's a complete opposite of hate.
Michael Bowman, VOA News, Washington.
Well, in the Democratic Republic of Congo, at least 24 people were killed and 31 injured following the derailment of a freight train. A police official says the dead and injured were stowaways. The train did not have passenger cars. It is feared the number of deaths might rise and that most of those killed were children. The National Rail Company has confirmed the derailment, which is the third in the DRC in the last month. 5 people died in a rail accident at a station in Kalenda last month. But at least 16 soldiers were dead in Mali after gunmen attacked and briefly seized an army base overnight in the Mopti region. The assault also destroyed multiple vehicles. Youssef Koulibaly, mayor of the nearest station, Kariri, told Reuters the base is in the village of Diora. In the past few years, central Mali has been overrun by jihadists with links to al-Qaeda. Violence by jihadist groups has worsened almost every year since it first exploded in Mali in 2012 when Islamists and allied Tuareg rebels seized the north and advanced towards the capital, Bamako. A French-led intervention pushed them back to following that year. Most of the suicide bombers in Somalia's central capital target Maka al-Makarama Road, which links the presidential palace to the busy K4 junction, which is home to many businesses and offices. It's here where the jihadists can cause greatest casualties and damage in order to display their power to the public, the government, and the international community. But as Mohammed Sheikh Noor reports, business owners insist on rebuilding while hoping the situation will turn around.
The most recent attack on March 1st targeted a hotel frequented by Somali elites, including some government officials. The hotel also bears the name of the street, the Maka al-Mukarama. The militant group Al-Shabaab claimed responsibility for the attack, which killed at least 25 people. Gurai Haji, the owner of the Maka al-Mukarama, says he does not know why his hotel is a target. This is the 5th time the hotel has been attacked.
I do not know why my hotel is targeted. I have nothing to do with politics. I am not a soldier nor working for the government. I am merely a businessman who raises his children.
Despite the death and destruction, members of the Somali business community usually defy such heinous acts and immediately start to rebuild their establishments and go on with their life.
I won't neither run away nor give up, because this is my country. I do not know where to go back. I have to show perseverance and stamina in order for the new generation to follow my footsteps.
Mohammed owns a restaurant on the same street and has been the victim of suicide attacks. He too says he will forge ahead.
With the help of God, we can recover from the tragedy. Having said this, only God knows what will happen in the future. But we hope that there will be a light at the end of the tunnel.
Hussein Moalim is a former national security advisor to the president and current chairman of Hiral, which is a security research and analysis organization. He doesn't see an end to the attacks in Mogadishu anytime soon.
These people will not stop such attacks because they believe that the use of force is the only way to achieve their goal towards seizing the power of the entire nation.
Moalim notes that Mogadishu business owners do not have any kind of insurance to help them recover, nor do they have an able government who can give them substantial support. However, he says businesses have other resources to draw on after a destructive attack.
They have other means and ways that make them come back again to revive their business by using existing mechanisms within the Somali culture, such as support, which is based on both family or friendship.
30 years of unrest in Somalia has made the people here resilient, or at least accustomed to the frequent attacks. Security analysts say that as long as the Somali government remains unable to go on the offensive, the businesses will have no choice but to prepare for more attacks and rebuild when they happen. For Mohammed Sheikh Noor in Mogadishu, Brian Allen, VOA News.
U.S. Assistant Secretary of State for African Affairs, Tibonaj, is wrapping up a trip to Africa with talks in Cameroon, where he is calling for an open and limited national dialogue on the country's Anglophone crisis. Assistant Secretary Nagy stopped in Cameroon after leaving the Democratic Republic of Congo, where he met with new President Etienne Tshisekedi in Kinshasa. Nagy said he is looking forward to President Tshisekedi following through on campaign promises that he says will lead to a prosperous and stable Congo. He said that would bring greater outside investment to the country, including U.S. firms.
American companies will go where there is opportunity. And what that means is a level playing field. It means honoring contracts. It means when there is a dispute, the judge rules in favor of the case, not who pays the most bribe. So it's a two-way deal. I push the American company and encourage them to come here, but the country must put in place an environment that is welcoming to American companies as well as to others.
U.S. Assistant Secretary of State for African Affairs, Tibonaj, speaking at the end of a trip that took him to Uganda, Rwanda, Congo, and Cameroon. Eritrean Foreign Minister Osman Saleh is in Somaliland, his first trip to the self-declared republic since Eritrea's landmark peace pact with Ethiopia. The regional impact of that deal led Eritrea to establish diplomatic ties with Somalia last July. Minister Saleh says talks with Somaliland officials, including President Musa Bihi Abdi, are part of ongoing efforts to enhance regional peace.
We said now we have been away, and now it is time for us to go to Somaliland and look into the situation. And we have a meeting with the president, and we heard his briefing, very interesting, very important. And also we tried also to say that we want to know the situation.
waxay u yimaadeen They came here to work on the cooperation and the relations of the Horn of African countries, in particular the countries of Eritrea and Somaliland, and to strengthen those relations.
Well, that was Somaliland Foreign Minister Yassin Haj Mahmoud speaking to reporters during the visit of Eritrean Foreign Minister Osman Saleh. I want to know what you think about Africa 54 and the stories we covered. Join the conversation on Facebook. The address is Africa 54. We're also streaming our show live on Facebook, so check us out and share our show with your friends. Find me on Twitter at VOA Vince McCory. Now, coming up, a Sudanese amputee continues his protests against the government's crackdown. But first, here are Monday's headlines.
How do you see the world?
I see countries in turmoil.
I see our planet changing.
I see people at peace.
No matter how you see the world, you'll get an unbiased and uncensored view of it on Voice of America. On television, radio, online, and mobile. In more than 40 languages all day, every day. Millions of people tune us in.
How do I see the world? On Voice of America.
Well, here in Washington, members of the Democratic Party have introduced a new bill dubbed H.R. 6, the Dream and Promise Act, which seeks to provide undocumented immigrants who came to the United States as children the opportunity to obtain permanent residence. The bill includes a proposal that would allow certain types of immigrants fleeing war or natural disasters the opportunity to apply for permanent residence. For some insight into the bill, I'm joined in studio by Joanne LeBlanc, National Security and Foreign Affairs Legal Strategist. Ms. LeBlanc, welcome to Africa 54.
Thank you.
Yes, now, of course, so many young people are so anxious about their future. Give us a little bit, kind of a summary of what this bill will bring that is different than what we've had before, because there have been efforts to try and kind of give some hope to these young people.
Absolutely. So Tuesday of last week, House Democrats, including Nancy Pelosi, introduced the American Dream and Promise Act of 2019, which would, if passed, would create permanent residency route for TPS holders, folks who are, TPS stands for Temporary Protective Status, as well as DACA, which are the Dreamers, right, that we're all familiar with, and also folks with DED status, and that's about, I believe, about 840 Liberians. And unfortunately, by the end of this month, because there's no protection for them currently, about 840 Liberians will be required to leave the United States. But essentially, the bill is, again, to create a pathway to permanent residency if passed. I predict that the bill will pass in the House, but I'm concerned about the bill in the Senate, the Republican-ran Senate in the United States. So I think that they may adjust the bill. And I'm hopeful, I'm very optimistic, because we know that, you know, TPS holders, DACA recipients, as well as other groups of immigrants, contribute so much to the economy of this nation. And I believe, according to the National Immigration Forum organization, that, you know, thousands and millions of dollars would be lost, and the economy will be highly impacted if this legislation were not to pass.
So, say those on the Republican side who may be opposed to this, what's the case they're making? What is their alternative, given that we have all these hundreds of thousands of people, or tens of thousands of people who are hanging, you know, somewhere in limbo at the moment?
Absolutely. And obviously, people have different positions for various reasons, right? There are those who believe that, you know, when TPS ends or when DED ends, you go back to your country, right? And then, but also we have to understand that America is a land of immigrants. I myself, as an immigrant from the Republic of Haiti, you know, I think I've contributed somewhat to society, and I think that immigrants contribute so much. And studies show that about 80% of TPS holders are working, and some of them even own businesses. So while there are arguments against the passage of this particular legislation. But I think that when policymakers are looking at this piece of bill, we should look at how would this impact our economy in our country. And I think it would be a good thing for our country to legalize all those folks. Because I think that, you know, when you are a TPS holder, right, every so often you hear you get an extension here, you get an extension there. But at some point, you want something permanent, right? And I think that TPS holders sometimes, they're politicians' biggest, I forgot the word that I'm supposed to use here, but I think that, you know, TPS holders, you know, they want permanent residency. They want to be comfortable. They want to live. They want to be able to continue to contribute to this nation. And I think that this bill should move forward.
But very briefly, we hope for the best. But what is the worst-case scenario?
The worst-case scenario is that currently under the Ramos versus Nielsen case, which was argued last year, currently TPS holders from certain countries, not all countries, are able to remain in the U.S. until January 2020. So TPS holders from Haiti in particular have gotten an extension until 2020 because of this court ruling. So once TPS ends, unless there is a legislation or unless there is a court case, you go home, unfortunately. And that's what's happening with Liberians right now in America.
It is terrifying. We hope for the best. I want to thank you very much for your insights, Ms. LeBlanc. Well, that's John LeBlanc, is a national security and foreign affairs legal strategist. Well, and here's what's trending. South Africa has the largest cosmetics market in sub-Saharan Africa. Now, more and more women are becoming increasingly conscious about how they take care of their skin and hair, and as a result are slowly turning to natural alternatives to cut out harsh chemicals. Shoppers are also feeling the impact of subdued wage growth, little to no job creation, and creeping inflation in Africa's most advanced economy. The growing demand for natural products by African women is not only a result of knowledge and awareness, but the potential of untapped traditional and cultural expertise and readily available products on the continent. Now, next up, Tel Aviv. Let's go to this robotic gripper. Looks like a wilted flower, but it can lift 100 times its own weight. But it's this unique look that makes the gripper so potentially useful. Underneath its rubber skin is an origami skeleton that is shaped like starfish. As gas is pumped in and out of the gripper's airtight enclosure, the whole device opens and closes like a flower. This allows the device to pick up delicate objects without harming them. Its tulip shape means it can approach objects from a variety of angles as opposed to a hand gripper, which usually has to come at an object from the side. And that's what's trending today. Well, and that's our show for today. Thank you very much for watching. Have a good night.